Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Very, very excited to have another fantastic guest on the show today, who we'll introduce in just a moment. As you know, Boxy is growing, and we have been so fortunate to do so. We've put a tremendous amount of work into doing so. We grow a lot of the traditional ways, like many businesses do, whether it's through SEO or PPC or mailers or what have you. But one of the ways the last 4 or 5 years we've been growing, not just in Phoenix, but in a lot of our markets like Cincinnati and Columbus, Kansas City, St. Louis, etc., has been via acquisition. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of pest companies throughout the United States. Companies enter the market every day and companies exit the market every day. And we have found a lot of success finding and discovering if we are a good fit to buy different pest companies throughout the United States. And so if you are a pest operator or owner or know one, and you guys have got 3 or 4 or 5 plus trucks on the road, have got a great brand and are reputable, we definitely want to talk to you. You can call me, you can text me, you can reach out to me via email. My cell is 480-254-9730. And my email is aclark@moxypestcontrol.com. We did a deal just less than a month ago. It was a smaller deal and it went so smoothly. And the owner of this company is living the good life now, not worrying about running payroll, not worrying about taking care of all of the customers like he's done the last 20 years or so. And he's got a chunk of change in his pocket too. And so please reach out if that's something that you're interested in doing. Today, we've got Oliver Sanchez on the show. And I am so excited just in the 10 minutes that we've kind of prepped for this podcast about some of the things that he will share with us about his company, Extrasense. You can check him out on his LinkedIn page. You can also check his company out at extrasense.co. Oliver Sanchez, he is the CEO and co-founder of Extrasense. Prior to that, he was the founder of Plug Cambridge, which was a small co-working space in East Cambridge that was focused on immigrant founders, which he launched and then eventually sold to Rent24, which is pretty neat. Back in 2017, he was labeled as one of the top 50 most daring entrepreneurs by Entrepreneur magazine, which is a humongous feat. And so, Oliver, it's really great to have you here today. Thank you so much and welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Austin. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Excited to talk.
Wonderful. Me too. Some of the things that our listeners like to know kind of from the get-go is what is some of your path? How did this start? You seem to be a bit of a serial entrepreneur. You've done many, many things and you've been very, very successful, but how did your entrepreneurial journey begin? Because you've been involved in many different companies and maybe just walk us through a 3 or 4 minute version of some of your path.
Sure. When I started out of college, I, like many, back in 2001, after the dot-com bust, I wanted to get a corporate job. I always wanted to have my own business, but it just seems like every time I graduate from school with my undergraduate or master's degree, something crazy is happening in the economy. So it wasn't in the cards at the time, but, I was always interested towards the end of my corporate career. But I was interested in investing in entrepreneurs. So I would do small angel checks with entrepreneurs. And I started really getting involved with entrepreneurs here in Boston which is an amazing ecosystem. And I had no idea about when I grew up in the early 2000s. It was just, really a new thing for me. So, got involved with entrepreneurship. I really got in love with being surrounded by entrepreneurs, the energy and just the passion a lot of them have. And it gave me the energy or the courage to jump. I opened Plug to host these entrepreneurs, to help them, see how I could help them. And it was through this co-working space where I met my co-founders of my current company. And I just learned a lot. We had events, we had pitch competitions. We just learned so much from that process. Ultimately, when we sold it, I actually didn't want to get into managing the space anymore, but I knew that I still wanted to do my own thing. And how Extrasense formed, it really goes back to my childhood. I grew up in Mexico, and there was an American school in Mexico that was funded by the APHIS, and the APHIS was trying to limit the spread of a type of fly that was attacking cattle, and they wanted to limit the expansion at the southern border of Mexico. And they put a $1 million plant out there. I think they were doing radiant females, releasing them so that the males, when they would mate with them, they would become sterile. It was a massive operation, traps everywhere, and it really fascinated to think, the amount of effort humans or the amount of costs we're willing to spend to control pests, right? So when I sold Plug, we're looking at something that was passionate. And you really looked around, and pests affect pretty much every aspect of our lives, from food, residential, commercial, agriculture. Anywhere you look, there's an impact of pests, and so I figured there was something that was worth me spending a lot of time on.
So fast forward to now, and I couldn't agree more with you. I didn't realize until I got into the home service space and pest industry that you're absolutely right. They do affect every aspect of our lives. They're prevalent everywhere. Unfortunately, in food handling establishments and in our crops, and that they were here before we were, and they're not really going anywhere anytime soon. So that's good for guys like you and me. It's a little bit of job security, and I wouldn't say recession proof, but it's a little bit of job security, knowing that they'll be there. So I've been fascinated as I've done a little bit of homework on your company. Initially I thought that it was another, and I don't mean to say just another, but I thought it was another CRM, but it's not a CRM. It's actually, Extrasense is actually in addition to and can supplement anyone out there that's using a software to house records for customers and payments and different sorts of things like that. Extrasense is actually an enhancement to that. And so tell us a little bit about your company. What was some of the ideas behind it? How did you come up with it? And what does it do exactly?
Yeah, great. So, the idea behind it is when we talked to, I don't come from a pest background. So initially when we launched the company, we had to talk to a lot of different people in entomology space and the pest space, both agriculture, residential, commercial. And, everybody, when we talked to everybody, everybody said, to be successful in a successful IPM, the first step is kind of successful identification, right? You have to identify what's a problem. So we're like, okay, so that seems to be the key to having multiple options, identification of what's being affecting, what's a pest is in your location. So it got us thinking as a team, like, if we could identify things better, earlier, faster, we could give people on the other side, whether it be pests, food safety managers, or maybe more options, right? And limit the amount of use of pesticides we had to use. It just gives it prevent potential larger infestations. So then we get around, like, how do we do that? So we were playing around with I had some background in computer science, playing around with the idea of, can artificial intelligence help us identify pests sooner, right? So we did a prototype where we could identify whether there was a bed bug or no bed bug based on image, just a still image. And we're testing this out. We're lucky enough that after just a couple tests, we're like, okay, this could work. And we're successful. We could identify, almost up to 90% accuracy with not so great images where the bedbug was not, whether it was a bedbug or not. So I was thinking, like, most people are at home seeing a bug on their, and this has happened to me, seeing a bug on their bed. They're like, oh, there's a bed bug, and freak out, right? Take a picture, go online, Google, and they find out they have no idea whether it's a bed bug or not. So then they end up calling somebody on that pest control that ends up being scheduled for next couple of days, and by the time the pest control company comes, they're already freaking out, and they burn the whole mattress and the whole house it's a mess, right? So we're like, if we could help you ID at the moment and tell you if it is a bed bug, and at the same time easily connect you to a pest control, just think how much smoother that whole process would be, right? So I don't have to go search. I can get, through my app, can show people that vendors that are, bedbug experts, if you will. And for the on the other side, as a vendor, I think from the pest control side, instead of me answering calls with everybody freaking out about there's a bug in my space, maybe I can only answer or maybe go after leads where it's only bed bugs. If I'm a specialist in bed bugs, then I only want to answer bed bugs. I know those are good leads. Maybe I can only answer those leads. So it really made the whole thing more efficient from our side. We're like, we can help people identify things faster, better, and we can help professionals, target or answer to leads that are really only relevant to them, or something that's really important to them. I think the whole process will be improved, and so that's kind of how we launched the technology. We were lucky enough to have one of the top two big pest control companies. I don't put their name here, but be as our first client. They liked the technology, and so we started to say, how do we make this better? So that's kind of part of what we do. We have an application essentially that allows a user to take a picture and identifies the bug. Not only does it identify the species, it can also identify the development stage, which I know it's important for pest control. We have over 170 species that we can identify now, and we can identify not only on image but also video. So that's at the core of our technology. So we're looking for other applications in the B2B space around food safety and food monitoring. We actually have a pilot with a big food processing company in the US where we're monitoring one of the facilities using our technology as well. So we think there's going to be multiple applications to our tech, and we're really excited to see kind of where we can take it. But at the core is helping the ID of pests using artificial intelligence, right? And then from then on, I think the process that follows is going to vary.
Well, and so there's a lot of things that I like about that, but you're absolutely right. When it comes to Pest ID and IPM or integrated pest management, the very first step to effective integrated pest management is that identification. So most pest control companies out there, they are either a one-man shop or it's smaller type business. And so to have a member of your staff be an entomologist is not reasonable. Financially, it's a humongous investment. So most companies just aren't investing those kinds of resources at that stage in the game. And so that could be an incredible application and plugin to have a low-cost entomologist, I guess, if you will, on staff. And that's just one of many. The thing that really caught my attention was the lead generation aspect. And so maybe Oliver, you could speak to that a little bit. Before we were talking about, man, wouldn't it be nice to have, because like you said, and it played out in my mind, people, they have a bug, they freak out about it. They think the worst. They think it's some sort of, super poisonous, whatever, when normally it's not. And
Right.
They take a picture and they go to Google. But what if there were a different application out there like yours, like Extrasense, where people were aware of it and could go there and actually have entomologists ID it? And then from there, I think that, your application kind of routes it to pest professionals in the area. Speak to that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I think the opportunity in the residential space is massive. I think I remember reading a research from one of the analysts that follow pest control, where he said, the market for residential is around $4 billion currently with all the big players, but that's only represents like 15% in the worst case of the potential of the whole market potential. Meaning, there's a lot of people that are doing their own pest control. They don't know what they're doing. Even if they do their own, I think 50% of them fail and they end up on pest control afterwards. So, and a lot of the reasons is because they have wrong ID. I how many people I've talked to were like, oh yeah, I thought I had hornets and it was this other thing, or I thought it was like ants, but it was termites, And so I go to Home Depot and I buy this thing and it didn't work. And the next thing you know, it's a huge issue and then I have to go pest control now, right? So for us, if you can, our app basically allows you to identify this thing immediately. We do have 3 entomologists on our team that review all the images. And if it's something that's critical, like a bed bug or termite, we actually make sure that we review it and confirm to the user that the ID is correct. We want to make sure there's no false negatives in that part. And then the other thing we learned is that consumers are willing to pay for pest control service providers if they have knowledge about the bug or the issue that they're dealing with, right? So it's being that front answer to a consumer where they tell you, we can tell them what the pest is if it's something that's dangerous. We can also tell you more information about it, like this is why it's dangerous. This is why you need to take care. Like this is why you can't take care of bed bugs yourself, right? Or maybe you shouldn't. Or this is why you should call a professional for termites, right? Having that upfront, I think, gives consumers a lot of peace of mind. They don't have to go and try to figure out what they have and how to deal with it. And so that's an important part. And on the other end, like I said, to people in pest control, to companies, pest control that are an app as a vendor, they don't need to go chase leads that might be somebody who wasn't really serious, or somebody who was just, who found an ant and he was like, yeah, I'm kind of checking prices. We can actually, we're the only company that can do this, where we can actually tell you this is a bed bug lead, right? This is not just any lead. This is a bed bug lead, or this is a termite lead. That's so important for somebody who has a small business and like, okay, I can't go after every lead. I had to concentrate the leads that I think I'm very effective on. If you're a bed bug guy or a wildlife guy, a rodent guy, that's kind of, you want to focus on those kind of leads. The way the current, lead generation is done, it's like you basically pay for any lead, and you got to figure out the lead goes anywhere. And we don't want to do that. We want to be very effective in giving you very select, pre-selected, I guess, leads, where we can actually tell you what the customer is dealing with. So I think everybody wins, because the customer, they know that you're coming at them and you're prepared to solve their issue because you know what their issue is. And from the vendor side, they're winning because they're going after a lead that they're going to be very effective at, and they know it's actually an actual lead with an actual problem behind it. So I think that part we're really excited about. In that, like I said, that's one part of the market we're going after is how do we create this application that helps the consumer, gives information, and helps them at the moment of the decision's being made, not later when they're doing research in Google, the moment that they need it, right? I think that's a key part of it. And to be honest, Austin, we looked around the market. There is no consumer-facing pest control application. I think other big companies have their app that their customers use, but it's more for servicing, billing. There's no application trying to inform the consumer about the type of pest, about new invasive species that are coming into their area, whether there may be a neighborhood is infested by certain invasive species. I think that's a vision of what our application could be. Imagine being at home, getting a notification, hey, we saw, fire ants in your neighborhood. Somebody in your region got fire. You should be protected. This is what you should do. I'm like, oh, great. Maybe I should call pest control and make sure that they don't check around, maybe fire ants. That would be ultimate, right? Prevention, prediction before it actually happened. So, ultimately, that's a vision for where we want to take that.
Well, and I believe, Oliver, that you're right. I obviously don't know everything, but I don't believe that there's another software or application out there that does precisely what you and the team at Extrasense are doing and attempting to do and doing really well. I also really like the way that you are pairing people together and the way that lead, if you will, is being transferred. It's starting out with a great relationship of trust, because you and the team at Extrasense are the medium connecting consumers, at least right now residentially, probably commercially as well, with a pest vendor to be able to say, hey, we've got these trusted partners in these areas. We're the experts in identification. They're the experts in handling the issue. And just like you said, if you specialize in bed bugs and that's all you do, or wildlife and that's all you do, I think all of us have chased leads or gone out to jobs where someone's called and said, I've got this bug, I don't know what it is. You've got to come out. And we do. And you kind of find out that they're not really far enough along in the purchasing process or the buying process. And so But not only does that leave the provider or pest company frustrated because they got to drive out there, take their time because they said yes to that, they said no to a lot of other things that they should have been doing or could have been doing. But it really matches a willing consumer and professional to be able to help one another, right, and to do business together. And then the other part of that is it's just starting out, like I said, with a great relationship of trust, saying, hey, this is what it is. You either should be worried about it or not. If you're worried about it, or, hey, you should be worried about it because, and this is what we recommend to do about it. And it costs about this much. Is that something you want to move forward with or not, or what have you? And so it really is an amazing idea and concept.
Thank you, Austin. Yeah, I think we've been, thinking of where we want to be. We want to take it to the next level, even where, you really have the full integrated, process. So after you deliver the service, you'll be able to contact the pest control, say, or the pest control be able to share information with the consumer. This goes around the trust that you're saying, Austin, you're spot on. If we can create that trust between the vendor or the professional and the consumer through information sharing, through data sharing, through being holding each other responsible for the service delivered, then this becomes a really powerful tool, because not only are you then delivering a service where you can also promote, people can also share your service with others. When somebody else finds a similar insect, we're thinking we could recommend people that did the best job, or had the highest stars, just like any other industry, really. But the pest control industry has been slightly behind on that. And there's, like I said, there's no consumer app doing that. So that's kind of what we want to be, the first to market.
Wonderful. So we've kind of talked about the ID portion of the application. Where do you see the company in 3 years or 5 years? Are you able to share some of the maybe product roadmap with us, or other things that you're looking to be able to put into the application? What does Extrasense look like in 3 to 5 years?
Sure. No, thanks. So yeah, I think from the application perspective, we're really focused on the user experience, as you pointed out, to build that trust. So we're looking at ability to share with your neighborhood, or share with proximity if there's a pest. We want to be very sensitive to privacy, of course, and we never disclose any specific or any individual information. But I think knowing if there's a pest in your neighborhood or there's invasive species in the neighborhood is very powerful, and it could really help people prevent infestations. So that's a big part of it. Another part of it is integrating with other vendors that already, software vendors that already have pest control service providers on their platforms, right? So we don't have to necessarily bring, we can integrate with other people's CRM, essentially, right? So if you have a CRM tool that you use, we want to build those integration points so that it's just easy to connect to our app. You don't have to build anything. It just shows up in the software that you're used to using. So that's a big component of our roadmap. And then on the B2B side, I think we see a lot of demand for hardware, right? So you see with the smart traps, this smart, specifically rodent smart traps. And the complaint we hear is that A, they're very expensive to maintain. B, the volume that you need to really be effective, it can be quite large and just very expensive. So instead of us focusing on redoing every trap, creating a trap for every single insect, what our technology allows us to do is just basically put a camera on top of any type of trap that's already there. So I think that's something that we're really looking to do in the near future, is having our identification technology running on cameras that are essentially off-the-shelf cameras, very low cost. We might be able to give them away for free, and that gives the pest control service for the ability to monitor things remotely, lower the cost in terms of labor, gives the consumer or the customer the peace of mind that things are being monitored without having to spend enormous amounts of money to replace every trap that you have placed in your location. So that's kind of the other big step that we want to take, is how do we add our pest recognition to more sensors to collect more data around pests, be it the smart traps or other sensors, and to really give you a 360 view of what's happening either in a location, whether it be commercial or residential facility.
Well, and I know I was at a conference a year ago, or kind of found a case study. But anyone that's done a large commercial job that's got a lot of rodent bait boxes or monitoring, systems there, traps there, most of the time is spent opening unaffected boxes or
Hmm.
traps. And so if you can eliminate that time by having them kind of self monitor, then your service pro or your service person can spend that time uh, doing more effective things or more efficient things, rather than walking to open a box that hasn't been entered in by any rodent, or there's no activity there. So
That's right. That's right.
um,
And we were recently talking to this large pest control vendor, and they told me, it's great. We looked at other solutions on the rodent side, but it doesn't make sense because we still have to go check the insect traps, right? So that was a light bulb for me. Like, of course, you're not really saving money if you can, yeah, I mean, it gets you saving a little bit of money by not checking the rodent traps, but if you still have to go drive to the customer's location and check the other trash just because you can't monitor those, then you're not really recovering, or you're not realizing all the value of the smart technology. But with our technology, because we can recognize rodents and insects, we can literally we monitor any of these traps, right? I think ultimately, I'm not an expert here. This is probably need an entomologist or someone like yourself, but I think we're one of the hypotheses that we have is that not every trap needs to be a smart trap, but only traps in high catch areas or high travel areas can be monitored, and that could be an effective kind of trade-off between cost and lowering in the immediacy of data. And I think our technology is very flexible, and it lends itself to these kind of testing scenarios where you can monitor certain locations, and it could be insects, it could be rodents. It'll still tell you what it is. And so I think that's something we're looking forward to pilot with a couple of customers. Being able to, yes, put some smart technology, but being very very conscious about the cost implications of that, and so not doing it everywhere, but only in high traffic areas.
Wonderful. Boy, Oliver, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. You and the team at Extrasense are doing things that are disruptive in a good way, and that whether people have thought about them or not, they haven't been done as far as I'm aware. And so what a neat niche market and need to fill for pest operators like myself and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of others. So thank you very much. I want to give you the last word. Have you got any last nuggets or final things to say, or just things that you might want to share with those that are listening that might help them out today or this week, or just any final thoughts on your end?
I guess the only final thought, Sam, would be, data can be very powerful if used correctly. And I think that the industry sometimes, when you're looking at how do you charge a customer, how do you generate revenue, has been focused on, I'm going to charge you per trip and have to show the face and show and be there. And I think it's slowly changing into, or customers are expecting more, right? Customers are really expecting, yeah, that's kind of table stakes, but what else can you tell me? How else can I prevent this? And I think ultimately regulations around the world, certainly here in the US and especially in Europe, are going towards limiting the use of pesticides and rodenticides.
Absolutely.
So we need to come up with a new way to do this, right? We need to come up with preventive measures, predictive analytics, things that allow us to prevent the pest activity from happening. And I think if we all do that, then we won't have to use as much pesticides as we do now. So my hope is that ultimately the vision of this company is to be able to do that, help in a way reduce the use of pesticides and rodenticides, across the industry. I know it's a long haul vision, but we think we can do that if we can all think more preventive rather than reactive.
It's only becoming more and more regulated. They're not approving more products and more chemicals. It's just becoming more and more restrictive. And so it will certainly continue to go the way of integrated pest management with chemical usage as a last resort. So
that's right.
Oliver, thank you so much. What is the best way for people to connect with you? How can they connect with you one-on-one? Where do they go to find out more information about your company? How can people find you?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to share my emails. Sanchez, Osanchez, at extrasense.co. And you can also connect me on LinkedIn. I always respond to all LinkedIn invitations, and you can find me under Oliver Sanchez. Happy to connect directly there. And of course, you can also check our websites and contact us through there as well.
Wonderful. Oliver, thank you again so much. And thank you to all of you that are listening and tune in each week and each Thursday. These drop every Thursday, so please subscribe. Thank you. And until the next one, create a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.